listening to Give God 90, where we're not afraid of the tough biblical questions, because we will dig through the language, the culture, and the history to find the truth revealed in the words of our Creator.
I wanna see the light.
Hello, everyone. We're certainly happy you're with us whenever you're here. It's Monday morning where we are. Bright, shiny Monday morning. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been here for a while, glad to have you. If you hear a little bit of a rumble in the audio, our air conditioner is actually running at the moment with good reason. It's summertime in the South. And you might catch a little bit of that. I'm not sure. Anyway, I am being closely monitored this morning, supervised.
Good morning, everyone. Glad you could join us.
Oh, it's been fun. Again, I want to remind everyone, if you are looking to say something to us while we're live, or if you want to leave a message on the directly on the podcast, you can do that if you have the free Spreaker account. You just hit the chat thing and the little icon bubble thing, and I don't know how to describe that. I'm sure it has a name, but anyway, you know where it's at. If you go there, you'll see it. You can do that while we're live, and if not, you can contact us through any of the many social media networks we're part of, just not Facebook.
Right.
If you happen to be new and you haven't been to Give God 90 lately, you can check that out. I did add a little note there as to why we're no longer part of the Facebook community, so you can see what that's all about. Don't forget, the books are still available. Tradition to Truth, God's Universe, God's Rules, and Inheriting Lies. And I got a lot to cover today, so I'm going to jump right in here because I need to update everybody with something that many of our listeners are concerned with. And we often let you know about genetically modified organisms, or GMOs as they've come to be known. I read an article this past couple days. It was written by Julian Rose in Global Research. And although this is primarily European right now, it's not going to be long until it's attempted globally. And she writes in part, and I will quote this: "Within the fortified corridors of the political industrial power in Washington and in the hallowed bastion of the European Commission in Brussels, the same dark plans are being pushed forward to alter the genetic code of life as to make both man and nature patentable, controllable, and servile to the cause of the techno-industrial god of incessant progress. The latest manifestation of this progress now has emerged within the food and farming sector and strongly threatens the future of all GMO-free produce and terrains. It goes under the deliberately innocuous heading New Genomic Technique, or NGT," end quote. So what we're seeing is that so many people are rejecting genetically modified organisms, food-based, excuse me, they decided to come up with a new name. And you want to be on the lookout for New Genomic Techniques, NGTs. That's going to replace GMOs. But manure by any other name still smells bad, right? She goes on, and this is interesting. I'll quote this from her. "The new deception is called New Genomic Technique, and its right to operate is now starting its passage through the legislative assessment processes at the European Commission. Warning: there is nothing about NGTs that carries any benefit for the environment or food quality. Quite the opposite. It is further tinkering with the genetics of life, whose purpose is solely to move living organisms out of traditional crossbreeding practices and into patented, laboratory-created industrial designer foods. Foods able to be manipulated to ultimately replace the need for existing soil or field-based agricultural traditions practiced by millions of farmers throughout the world. This agenda is a central component of the World Economic Forum program known as the Great Reset, and particularly its Green New Deal and Fourth Industrial Revolution. Shockingly, it is supported by the once green King Charles III of England, who operates alongside the WEF Executive Chairman Klaus Schwab, and recently gave royal assent to new biotech innovations which stand at the opposite end of the spectrum from organic and ecological farming practices, end quote. Now, while some may be inclined to consider this the next step in the so-called New World Order, and it also may include what Christians consider part of the mark of the beast, the reality is it's nothing more than the next phase of the enemy attempting to destroy mankind. That's what it is. Control the food, control the people. Destroy the food, destroy the people. That simple. So there's the latest update. You need to watch the things you eat. Pretty basic, pretty simple. So there you have it. That's the latest. Watch out for the NGTs, GMO NGT. You know, if it has letters, chances are it's not a good thing. And I'll let the PhDs decipher that on their own. and there's one particular one I know that, and she has good reason to be proud of her degree. She's got a lot more experience. I should say a lot more real life experience than I'm sure she ever learned when she got her doctorate. So, I'm going to tell you something I often heard growing up. And if you've read Tradition to Truth, you know I did not think much of school. I hated school. Didn't like it. Didn't enjoy it. I was good at it. Didn't matter. All the adults that knew me would tell me, you've got to go to school. You've got to get good grades. You're going to wind up with a shovel in your hand. Well, yeah, maybe. Now, back then, having a shovel in your hand meant you'd be digging ditches, right? Which is honest work, hard work. But when I was, 10, 11, 12 years old, I was used to having a shovel in my hand. I grew up on a farm. You always were, our chicken house wasn't these new innovative chicken houses. Okay, it was a 400-foot long building that we didn't have equipment to clean it out with other than, a shovel, a rake, and a pitchfork. And you would literally have to take the windows out of one of the rooms. You would park your manure spreader outside, and all of the chicken litter got shoveled into that manure spreader to go be spread. It was hard, smelly, kind of nasty work at times, especially in the summertime. Dusty. It was tough. Well, I did go to school. I did get good grades. And I still wound up with a shovel in my hand at times.
Times yesterday.
A couple times yesterday. A neighbor down the road here just a little ways was kind enough to offer us
Blessed us with some nice manure.
some sheep manure, and went down, and yes, we loaded it with a pitchfork and a shovel. And we came home and unloaded it with a pitchfork and a shovel. Went into the compost pile and expect that to be ready for next spring. The message they were trying to get across to me, they thought was a good illustration to achieve my best effort. That's what they were trying to say. You've got to work hard if you want to be successful and productive. Working with large animals most of my life, you learn to work with the tools of the trade. They wanted me to be the best person I could be, and hopefully I am doing that. But yeah, I spent a lot of time. We had a saying when we were on the ranch in Colorado. Having a pitchfork in your hand takes all the romance out of being a cowboy. Because it's tough. It's tough. And when you're feeding hay for 6 months out of the year, it's hard work. But even today, we still use those things. Sometimes more than I want to. But anyway, it kind of brings me to what I want to talk about. And that is the way that believers deliver the message that the message that the Bible has. How do believers deliver that to the world today? Are they actually delivering it appropriately? I guess would be a good question. Are we giving the right message? And I don't know if most believers today actually have the right message to deliver. And by that, I mean, as believers, do you really know what message the Bible overall or in general is giving us? Now, Christians will, of course, say, well, it's all about Jesus. It's all about the forgiveness of sin. Okay, well, most Jewish believers have a different perspective and say it's all about following the tradition of the elders. Now, if you've been listening to us for very long, you've probably figured out that we don't consider either of these things the overall general message of the Bible, with good reason. You see, when you get tunnel vision and you only concentrate on Jesus and the forgiveness of sin, you miss the beginning of the book. When you only concentrate on the traditions of the elders, you miss the middle and the end of the book. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. As long as I'm making sense, as long as I'm explaining, as long as I can explain it so that other people can understand it kind of the way I do, I'm in good shape. We're going to look at a particular passage from Jude. And I think if the translators and editors of the Bible long ago would have actually understood this, they would have probably edited this differently. Go ahead and read that. It's very short.
Dear friends, I wanted very much to write to you about the salvation we all share together, but I felt the need to write to you about something else. I want to encourage you to fight hard for the faith that God gave his holy people. God gave his faith once, and it is good for all time. Jude chapter 1, verse 3.
Okay, so that being from the International Children's Bible, the more familiar passage talks about the faith once delivered to the saints. And Jude writes that he wanted to talk about salvation, but instead chooses to write about this faith because he considers it so important. And the reason it's so important is because it's for all time. Now, a few weeks ago, we did an entire episode of what this faith is. And I believe we called it the faith once delivered. if you want to go back and listen to that again. And I went into great detail of what this faith is and how it affects us today. And, of course, hopefully you remember that this faith is the instructions that were given to the mixed multitude at Mount Sinai, what many people considered or think to be the law. Now, why did Jude consider this more important than salvation? Well, what he understood is that the instructions teach us to live the way our Creator designed us to live. And when we do that, we will be rescued from the final death, which is what salvation is. Yet, well, yes, forgiveness is important, right? And it's necessary. However, the message that too many are delivering today is, oh, if you just have Jesus in your heart, then you can go sin and do whatever you want to do. You'll still be okay. Yes, there are denominations that are teaching that. Sadly, but they're there. The other part of that is you can sin and be okay as long as you keep coming to our church and you still keep giving as much as you can. Right? Because there's always that caveat in there. We've talked about that too. Now, for our Jewish friends, the message has become, just do everything that the rabbis tell you to do. You'll be all right. Well, that message was actually challenged by Yeshua, Jesus, in Matthew chapter 23, if you want to read that little portion.
Then Jesus spoke to the crowds and to his followers. Jesus said, "The teachers of the law and the Pharisees have the authority to tell you what the law of Moses says. So you should obey and follow whatever he, Moses, tells you. But their lives are not good examples for you to follow. They tell you to do things, but they do not do the things themselves. They make strict rules and try to force people to obey them, but they themselves will not try to follow any of those rules." Matthew chapter 23, verse 1 through 4.
Of course, I changed that to reflect what was actually recorded in the Hebrew Gospel of Matthew from the oldest known manuscript that we have so far. Most Bibles, however, will translate it as do what the Pharisees say to do. And I've actually began to think they translated it that way on purpose. You see, if the people read this and say, oh, well, we have to do what the Pharisees say to do no matter what, that later would, become the preachers and the pastors, and we need to do what they say no matter what. You see, they needed the authority to rule over the people. Because if the people were simply given a copy of the Bible when, well, most of them couldn't read back then, but if they could read like most people can today, and they go back and they look at what it says and they hear something different coming from the pastors and the preachers, what are they going to think? Oh, wait, that's what's happening to a lot of people right now. They hear something from the pastors, the preachers, the rabbis, other worship leaders. They read what's in the Bible and they think, why doesn't this add up? And the churches are wondering why people are leaving. I could go on with that, but I'm going to run out of time here. Another problem that has developed, and this is probably unintentional, and I'm going to really step on some toes of some friendly folks here now. People who claim to be Torah observant are delivering the wrong message as well. Because a lot of times they're delivering the message that, if you don't follow all of the instructions found in the first 5 books of the Bible, you're not going to be good enough to go to heaven. There's a problem with that message. It's the wrong message to deliver. While we should be doing the most we are able to do We simply can't do everything. Not everything. It's impossible. And I, regular listeners know I like to go back to Daniel for this. Ask yourself the question, was he able to offer the sacrifices in the temple? Of course not. He was in Babylon, 500 miles away. Was he able to enjoy the freedom to worship openly? Of course not. But what did he do? He did the most he could do, the best way he knew how to do it. Because he did that, Daniel was rewarded with messages direct from the throne room. Gabriel came to him, said, here's a message for you. I should have been here sooner, but we had a little interruption getting here to you, Daniel. Daniel, didn't really have the life he probably envisioned for himself, right? Let's be real. He, when he was growing up, he probably didn't think he was going to be captured, castrated, and forced into exile. He probably didn't think when that actually happened that he would be treated the way he was. And yet, Daniel, he counseled, he instructed, and he served 4 different kings. Why was he able to accomplish the things he was able to accomplish? It wasn't because he sat back and said, well, I can't go to the temple and make the sacrifices. What's the use? I can't do anything. I'll just adapt this Babylonian lifestyle and be okay. I'll get through. I'll just survive. That's not what Daniel did. Daniel did the most he was able to do, the best way he could find to do it, to live the way he was actually designed to live. And that's really the message that believers need to be delivering. Just live the way you're designed to live. Now, that's going to be a little bit different for each of us because we're all created equally but differently. We are created beings, each having our own skills and our own talents given to us by our Creator to benefit the people around us. And by that very nature, each of us will adapt to those instructions. Notice I didn't say the instructions would adapt to us. We have to adapt to those instructions to do the best we can do when we're able to do it. Children by design are going to do things differently than adults, right? Single people are going to do things differently than married people. Older people will do things a little different than younger people. Farmers are going to have to do things a little different than doctors. Doctors a little different from lawyers, and lawyers a little different from teachers. And yet, each and every one of us is capable of following the writings of Moses to accomplish the things we are designed to accomplish. How about that? Just like Daniel did. Just like Daniel. No matter what you find yourself in, no matter what you find yourself doing, you have the ability to adapt to the instructions we are given by our Creator to benefit the people around you and in turn be benefited by others. Something that we should remember is that living the way that the Bible teaches us to live it's different. We're not trying to live up to some man-made doctrine. We're not trying to live up to some man-made agenda. We're not trying to figure out how to maintain some empty tradition that conflicts with the Bible. The message that should be being delivered today, well, yeah, I can say it that way. The message that should be being delivered today should contain stop doing things that conflict with the way we're designed to live. Now, the message that believers should be sharing is to live the way the Creator designed us to live. And that's going to be a little bit different for each of us, but the foundation of it is actually found in Deuteronomy chapter 6.
Hear, O Israel, Jehovah our God, Jehovah is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength. These words I'm commanding you today to be upon your hearts. And you shall teach them diligently to your children, and speak them when you sit at home, and when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. Tie them as reminders on your hands, and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the doorpost of your house and on your gates. Deuteronomy 6, 4 through 9.
You see, when we do those things, we're going to remember the faith that was once delivered. And we can deliver the message of the Bible and not some man-made religion, not some man-made doctrine. We have got to stop thinking that we need to build church membership or convert people to a denomination, when what we really should be doing is simply showing the people around us and the rest of the world the way we're designed to live by living the way we're designed to live. It's that simple. It's that easy. And you can do it. You have the ability. You're given the ability to do that. Doesn't matter where you are in the world. Doesn't matter who you are. You have the ability. So, until Thursday, we will be...
We'll be back then.
We'll be back then.
All excited. Tell you more good stuff.
And we're going to be busy until then, too.
Yes, we
We've got
are.
a lot of...
It's that time of year.
It's that time of year.
And the ground is calling.
Until then, many, many blessings, everyone.